Okay, let's jump right into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to crack open one of the oldest, most fascinating, and frankly, most frustrating biological mysteries you'll ever face in the apiary. We're building a complete, actionable guide to managing space and ventilation so you can completely prevent natural swarming. The goal here is to shift your entire beekeeping mindset from reactive panic into proactive control. We'll be looking at the exact steps to stop the swarming impulse before it even starts. So let's get straight into the actual biology of the hive.
Picture this scenario, because we've all been there. You walk out to your hives, and the colony looks absolutely perfect. The queen is laying beautifully, the nectar intake is incredible, the bees seem perfectly calm, and the boxes are literally vibrating with life. And then, out of nowhere, half of your apiary just disappears into the air. It is totally heartbreaking, right? Especially when it happens right before the main honey flow. But here's the thing you need to know. It's not a disease, it's not poisoning, and it's definitely not starvation. This is literally the oldest biological survival mechanism bees have. And the main thing I really want you to take away from our discussion today is simply this. A swarm is not a system failure.
So here is our roadmap for today's explainer. Section 1 is the myth of swarming. Section 2 is the 3 swarming triggers. Section 3 covers space shortage signs. Section 4 is all about proactive management, and we'll wrap up with Section 5, genetics and reaction.
Let's start with Section 1, the myth of swarming and superorganism biology.
Now, grasping the concept of the superorganism basically changes everything. A lot of beginners think swarming means the bees have gone completely crazy, or maybe they've gotten overly aggressive, or that the queen has somehow failed, but the truth is actually the exact opposite. An individual bee doesn't reproduce on its own. The entire colony reproduces as one single massive living entity. Think of it like they're packing their bags because they've successfully outgrown their starter home. Swarming is a direct sign that the colony has reached the absolute peak of its strength. The biological system evaluates the conditions and decides, hey, we have enough resources to safely split into 2 parts. It's totally natural, it's deeply biological, and it's a huge sign of success. But obviously, for a beekeeper hoping for a good honey harvest, it's a massive problem because your entire workforce just flew off into the trees.
Moving on to Section 2. 3 swarming triggers are biological catalysts.
Okay, so what actually causes this? There are 3 main triggers, and they act as the true invisible engines of swarming. First up is overcrowding. When a hive gets too crowded, the queen's pheromones literally cannot circulate evenly throughout the colony. It causes a massive informational interruption. The bees hanging out on the edges literally stop smelling the queen, and boom, the system instantly shifts into swarming mode. Second is age structure imbalance. Imagine having a massive population of young nurse bees bursting with enormous energy. If they don't have enough open brood to feed or comb to build, they basically become unemployed, and unemployed bees redirect all that immense biological energy directly into generating a swarm.
And that brings us to our 3rd trigger, which honestly throws a lot of people for a loop, the Nectar Flow Paradox. You would think a strong nectar flow is great, right? Well, it can actually skyrocket the risk of swarming, especially for your absolute strongest colonies. Why on earth would they do that? Because the bees are receiving a massive, undeniable signal from nature that conditions are absolutely perfect. And in nature, ideal conditions mean it's time to reproduce. The superorganism doesn't sit there thinking, oh, let's fill as many supers as possible so the beekeeper is happy. No way. Their primary goal is the survival and spreading of their genetics. So a booming nectar flow directly feeds the swarm impulse.
Which brings us to Section 3, space shortage signs, and how to properly read the hive. Here is a crucial tip for recognizing the early stages of a hive overload before you ever even see a single swarm cell. By the time you actually see capped swarm cells, you are already way behind. The worker bees make the collective decision to swarm much earlier than that. So how do you catch it? Watch their behavior at the entrance. Look for a sudden shift from smooth flowing traffic to heavy congestion. It looks just like a traffic jam that wasn't there a week ago. You might also see clusters of bees hanging outside the entrance even when it's not terribly hot out. You'll definitely notice a sudden drop in pollen intake simply because they aren't planning to feed new brood in this location anymore. And if you pop the lid and look inside, you'll see a slowing of egg laying because they have to put the queen on a diet so she's light enough to fly. These are the exact behavioral signs that biological pressure is maxing out and they desperately need more space.
Let's look at Section 4, proactive management, and how we can control these conditions.
we really need to talk about the huge difference between reactive beekeeping and proactive beekeeping. Reactive beekeeping is basically the beginner's panic. You open the hive, see a bunch of swarm cells, and desperately cut them all out. But if the swarming impulse is already strong, you are just fighting symptoms. You scrape them off, and the bees will simply rebuild them in a few days. Proactive beekeeping, on the other hand, is about fighting the biological conditions themselves by managing space, optimizing temperatures, and reading the processes early. Your job isn't to fight nature. Your job is to understand the superorganism's signals and alter its environment before those cells are even constructed.
So let's get into the concrete steps to proactively manage that space and ventilation. Step 1. You have to time the addition of your supers perfectly. When bees get the distinct feeling that they can expand, the risk of swarming absolutely plummets. But if you are late by just a few days, the impulse gets locked in. Step 2. Aggressively increase ventilation. Overheating intensely magnifies the feeling of overcrowding. Think about it. A hot, stuffy hive feels way smaller to a bee than a cool, well-ventilated one. Step 3. Give them comb to build. Remember those idle, unemployed nurse bees with all that pent-up energy? Put them to work. Directing their energy into comb building is a fantastic preventative technique because it literally burns off the biological swarm impulse.
All right, keeping all that in mind, here is your daily preventive checklist. First, monitor the hive entrance every single day to catch those early behavioral shifts. Second, expand your space before you actually see congestion. Remember, beekeeping is entirely a game of timing. Third, ensure proper summer ventilation to keep that internal climate stable and comfortable. And finally, consistently provide fresh frames for comb building to keep that youth workforce heavily occupied. If you miss these steps, you could literally lose your entire season's honey yield in a single afternoon.
Finally, Section 5, Genetics and Reaction. Because timing is crucial.
Now, it's important to remember that not all bees are exactly the same. The genetics of the colony directly affect their natural swarming tendency. Some genetic lines have an incredibly explosive spring buildup and just naturally carry a higher swarming impulse. But here is the massive catch you need to remember. Even the absolute best, most heavily bred, swarm-resistant genetics in the world cannot defeat poor space management by the beekeeper. 9 times out of 10, when a hive swarms, it was because the beekeeper was a week late in adding a super. So while genetics matter, the ultimate responsibility for keeping that colony in the box lies entirely in your timely management.
Ultimately, beekeeping is about reading the hive, deeply respecting the biology, and staying just one step ahead of the superorganism. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever lost a massive swarm right before the main honey flow? How badly did it affect your season's harvest? Let us know about your experiences in the comments below. And hey, if this explainer helped you see the hive in a totally new light, make sure to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss out on our deep dives into the real, actionable biology of the apiary. Thanks so much.